Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started then. Thank you very much for joining us today. As you know, the main topic of today is moving the licensing over and really just going on and explaining what making the move to CSP with Betach means. I know there are quite a few questions around it. So I'm Andrew Beresford, part of the Betach sales team here, and on the call with us I have Natasha Joseph. Natasha is the partner sales executive from Microsoft, so she'll be on with us today to help explain kind of what this process is, why it's come about, and really provide some context so that we can continue to move forward and make your experience with Betach a positive one. So I think kind of just starting off here, I'll really dive in and explain what the cloud solution provider is. Essentially, it's a new way of transacting licenses through Betach rather than Microsoft. So in the old model, it used to be you'd go in through the Microsoft portal, you could set it up, and then you'd list Betach as an advisor. And what that meant was that we were helping you out in some way, shape, or form, whether that be implementation or just general support. So now what Microsoft's done is they haven't always been a huge fan of the billing process, and if you've worked with Microsoft before, you are familiar with some of the struggles that Microsoft billing can provide. So they've looked at it and said, okay, well, we have this whole pool of partners here. Now, why don't we utilize them? So there's a couple of tiers to the cloud solution provider, and what that means is if you have a certain number of criteria that are met, you can either be a tier 1 or a tier 2. So Betach is a tier 1, being that we have enough resources on staff, enough gold competencies that we are able to directly license straight to the end user, essentially taking out the middleman of Microsoft as that licensing mode. And then Natasha, definitely feel free to jump in if I've missed anything.
Perfect. The fact is there isn't actually anything missed, but I think coming from the Microsoft side, as Andrew said, I am the partner sales executive in Microsoft at the moment. I think that the biggest thing that's happened is the world of Microsoft is changing. We're putting more emphasis and more kind of power in the hands of our partners nowadays, more than ever before. And the reason being was exactly as Andrew said, which is that we have millions of customers to support, but we have this fantastic partner ecosystem that can support them better than some of the ways that we can in Microsoft, because we just don't have the pure resource that our partners have when we scale. And the type of support that our partners give sometimes can be well above and beyond the basic support that you would get through Microsoft if you were billed through them. And as Andrew described, being a tier 1 CSP provider really puts you in that next realm of Microsoft partners. You're in that next tier of Microsoft partners and really are the best of the best in terms of support, what you offer to the partner, and more than anything, Microsoft's just trying to make that customer experience better by making that interaction of what used to be with Microsoft first and then any partner you chose because you might have needed support, to putting the full control between the partner and the customer, because that's where the real relationship happens and that's where the real support happens. So that's the new way of that transaction, and that's why the transition actually happened.
Okay. So then moving on here, just looking at kind of some of the reasons to move, and we will get to some common questions after here, and then we'll open it up to the floor, and we can answer any questions that you might have. So one of the big things is that single bill. As I alluded to before, Microsoft was notorious for some of their billing where if you had multiple services, you'd receive multiple invoices, and that can become quite cumbersome. So at Betach, what we're going to do, especially if you already have support or some other things with us, what we're going to do is we'll just consolidate all of that into one bill. And the nice thing about that is then you only need to, cut one or maybe two checks, and then it's a lot more clear for your accounting department. Gives them a little bit of a little bit more time on their hands, I guess, rather than working through all of these and trying to figure it out and match the numbers and make sure it all makes sense. Another big thing with the move is once you become a cloud solution provider, we have greater insight into your actual account, so we can see things like, oh, there's an issue with Exchange. For example, so there's going to be some email troubles that are going to be down, and we can communicate that to you a lot quicker and a lot easier than we would before in the advisor model, where you just look at it and say, okay, well, they have these licenses and they're going to renew on this date. This really kind of provides a lot more insight and some deeper things that add some value to the conversation, where it's not just a once a year, hey, your licenses are going to be up for renewal, let's renew them, and really engages, I think, Betach with our customers a lot more. One of the things that we are providing as part of this move is a free licensing evaluation. So what that is we'll go in and look at your licenses and say, hey, it looks like you're not actually using all the licenses that you should be, or did you know about this new licensing SKU that's come out? I do know that in Microsoft, the licensing can become quite confusing, and we were actually talking about the other day, and there are several individuals who actually have PhDs in Microsoft licensing, just due to the complexities of it and the vast scale of it. And so at Betach, we aren't PhDs in the licensing, but we do work hard to make sure that we can give the best value to our customers, especially with some of the licensing SKUs that are changing, and you're going, okay, well, am I really using all these features? And that's also something that we can see inside our cloud solution provider portal, where we can say, hey, look, you have these licenses, but you're actually only touching 1, 2, or 3 of these pieces inside it. Let's move you to a different SKU that makes a lot more sense and maybe saves you some money.
Okay.
So that's kind of the idea behind the licensing evaluation.
I mean, can I just jump in here?
Yeah, definitely.
I think what you said, Andrew, was fantastic. I think this is what we really need our customers to understand, is that as soon as you go through the Microsoft portals, we like exactly as Andrew said, we find it very hard to kind of help you then go down to the nitty gritty of actually finding out, okay, so as part of my 365, there's so many different things that I could utilize. But Microsoft, because they deal with so many people from that direct model going through the Microsoft portals, they don't have a chance to really help you explain or understand just how much you have on offer. And so what we actually find is that many people drop off some of our services when they go directly through Microsoft, because they just don't quite understand the breadth of how much they could be using for the price that they're paying. And so often don't see the value or the benefit in what they've just bought. Now, this is the fantastic opportunity with partners, and this is what Microsoft realized, and why we're giving such an emphasis to the partners and power to the partners, because this is what we want for our customers. We want them to buy something and use every single bit of it. And if they aren't, then we downgrade them to a SKU where they are using everything. So that's kind of the world that we want to move to, and the customers that we want to see that really utilize everything so that they can be great advocates not only for the product but for Microsoft. Much better than before.
Okay.
So then kind of just moving along here. I'm just going to run through some common questions that do pop up, and then we'll open up the floor and go over some questions that you might have. The big one, does my price change? So the pricing does not change. What you do see online listed through the Microsoft portal is the same price that comes through and that we bill you at. So that's a nice thing, because oftentimes I find customers are worried and they're going, okay, well, because it's going through you, are you then putting, X number of points on top of that to change that around? And that's not happening, which I think is really nice, and it really just allows that interaction to happen a lot easier. Another question that comes up is around accessing the admin center and control over your users. So you do have access to your admin center the same way you would now. And adding and removing users, you can do still the same. The only thing would be you are limited to the bucket of users that you have, or the licenses you have available. But one thing that is very easy to do is just to give us a call and say, hey, we have 3 new employees coming on. Can you add those 3 licenses? And we can do that in the back end very quickly for you, and then you're up and running and off to the races. So there is.
And is there a charge for that?
No.
So that's a charge. Okay.
That would be all included as well. Okay. So there isn't any charges.
And if somebody leaves, same thing. We contact you to remove the license.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It would just be, turning off that license and making sure that user is removed from your system, and then you're good to go.
Okay.
Another concern that we have seen is what happens if my relationship with Betach diminishes, and I think this is probably something where Natasha can kind of step in here and explain this a little bit more. But just because you're working with us, and it's the nature of the business, sometimes people decide they want to move different directions, or they're not entirely happy. I mean, it is unfortunate, and it's not something that we want to have happen. And so we do try our best to make sure that we maintain those relationships. But if it is the case where you feel, okay, well, I'm not sure I want to continue to do this, maybe you want to go back to the portal, or you want to go to another partner, you do have that ability. It's not so much that you're tied to Betach forever and eternity. We don't have the ability. We're not going to be holding your licenses hostage and saying, hey, you have to pay us every month, even though that you're not happy with the service. And then I think Natasha can kind of explain more how she can connect you with other partners, if that was a situation.
Exactly. I think the great thing about it is that we have a whole wealth of partners out there, whether it's you're based in the West or any part of the world, really. And this is where we can help, because if, for example, your experience with Betach was not good, which I would very highly doubt because they are a fantastic partner of ours, there is an opportunity to move that across, and that process is still pretty seamless. So again, as Andrew said, there is nothing that is tying you to this partner, but like all licensing, and even how you would with Microsoft, you often have to wait until the end of your term or contract with that partner, whatever that contract was. But in the realms of the agreement that you have with them, there's an opportunity to move at any point as well. So nothing's tying you down. It's a much better process in terms of just having the flexibility and the real support behind you. And it's just a better model in general, because it's giving you as a customer more access to support, more understanding of what you're going to use and when, and more control over whether you want to do it with one partner or another.
Okay, now when you say contract terms, so is, Andrew, would there be a contract term, like a 1 year minimum or 2 years?
Right.
Or can it be a month to month?
Right, yep, definitely. And that's a great question. It was kind of something that I was thinking there. So you read my mind. But with our general support agreements, oftentimes we have a 1 year contract on that. But if you're just signing up with just the licensing piece of it, then that is month to month. So the nice thing about that is you do have some scalability where you're saying, hey, look, in the summertime, I hire a bunch of co-op students for the summer, and our employee base goes up by 5. And that's just for a 4-month term. And then at the end of the 4 months, you go, okay, well, those students are all gone now. We can just go on and turn those licenses back off. So you're not locked into something where you said, hey, 4 at the start, 4 at the end.
Right. Okay. And maybe later we can talk more about that, Andrew.
Yeah. Definitely. That's something we can take off. Just kind of the last thing here that I do want to touch on is that there isn't really any effect to the users, and there is no downtime when we're just straight switching the licenses over from the current model to our CSP. So you do receive a couple emails from Microsoft that say, hey, your licenses have been canceled. Which is unfortunate. It does cause some alarm with customers where they're going, hey, wait, what do you mean? Is this actually canceled? And it's not that it's canceled. It's just no longer being directly through Microsoft. So And if it is just a straight licensing change, there is no impact on the user at all. It's something that I can do on the back end, and nobody even knows it happens really, except for all of a sudden your bill is a lot more clear and it just comes through us.
Okay.
Just so, do you have any more questions there that we might be able to address at this time?
No, I don't think so. Any that we can take offline, Andrew?
Yeah, sure.
Any
yeah,
that
definitely.
I have. I'll chat with Greg and Steve, and they might have some questions, and we can. Yeah.
Perfect. Yep, not a problem. And then once again, if you do have any questions, and this is our main line, and just some information about us if you want to give us a call.
Okay.
So I'll just go ahead and finish the recording